long chain, what do we call them? Phenolics, is what they are, and their effect, their essential effect, as they're a component of wine, is, at least as we perceive it as a component of wine, is in its effect on changing the shape of the protein mucin. So mucin, which is always present, is slippery. It's a lubricant because it exists as a film. That's because of the shape of the protein. The molecule has a particular shape that forms films. And so what happens is that in the presence of tannins, these different kinds of high molecular weight polyphenol compounds that are tannins, the protein itself, the molecule of the protein itself changes its shape. So, this proteins are notorious for having loose shapes that can change. So you witness egg white, it's a colloidal liquid, add heat once, it's a rubbery solid. So the physical characteristic of the same protein, it's the same molecule, but is the shape of it changes. So what happens is that with tannin, you drink a glass of tannic wine or sassafras tea or something else, the tannins result in a change in the shape of that protein molecule, mucin, so that it's no longer an effective lubricant. It forms filaments instead. So you look in there, if you can see in the bottom, if people have been spitting here in a Barolo tasting, you look in there, you see the black filaments where the mucin is bound up with the tannins and anthocyanin coloring polyphenols. And what happens then is your sense of them, the texture that you feel, is actually the texture of the roof of your mouth and your tongue and your lips on your teeth, in the absence of what is normally 100% of the time the lubricant. Exactly. And the various molecular weight, length, and types of these tannic compounds result in somewhat slightly different changes of shape, perhaps width of the filament, and the degree, the exact degree to which the protein changes shape, and so you get different sense of tannins, and they may be they may be dramatic. Sometimes they can be really stripped away. You drink something that is really tannic that thoroughly disables. You really have a stringency that's normal, and yet it's something perfectly wonderful and natural in the wines of places where the agricultural system provides pasturage and vines, because it's perfect with meat and hard cheese. It's perfect with protein and so on. Among other things, meat itself really has, not so much flavor, but if you strip away that film of mucin, all of a sudden the meat is meatier. The duck is duckier in Bordeaux when you're drinking a Bordeaux wine. And at the same time, the fat and protein in the food component modifies, again, the lack of the normal lubricant. So you have the fat, it's okay, there we are, it's nice texturally again. So between the two, there's this sort of contrapuntal game of textures and that enriches. You taste more, and then you have this beautiful textural game that's going on. And it's almost universally the case in areas where the agricultural system provides pasturage and vines, essentially, that you have simple cuisines, not arch complex cuisines, like the ones you have in Provence, for example. But you have tannic wine. Tuscany is another place. It's like so you have Sangiovese. It's like
Bistecca Fiorentina, right?
Other places, though, like say in Piemonte, you have a varied cuisine. So you have some wines that are really tannic, but then you also have Barbera, and you have Dolcetto, which has a little tannin, by the way. But you have a variety of grapes that are selected so that you have more adaptable wine. In Provence, you may have basically Grenache wines and a range of tannins, but you have basically much more adaptable wines of moderate tannin because you have a much more varied cuisine that includes even more than just the sheep and ducks and beans, and the olive oil and the herbs and the truck farming and the garden vegetables and the fish and langoustine out of the Mediterranean. But as important, you also have the cultural influences of the Spanish, Moroccans, Italians, French, Piemontese, Provençal, Savoyards, all contributing cultural expressions of cuisine. So those wines better be adaptable. Bordeaux doesn't have to be that adaptable, but Southern Rhone, Little Southern Rhone wines are those kinds of very adaptable wines, they tend to make better cocktail wines. Yep. You're just going to drink, I drink a glass with soft tannins, fleshy fruit, and so on. Where this kind of wine is, it's
food wine.
Harder to be just a cocktail wine.
Yeah.